because I've got 5 kids and nobody's beaten a path to my door to give me work. This is all part of the overall plan. It's, again, my lawyer said, this isn't about John Kiriakou. This is bigger.
So for people who don't understand Andy's question, John has been hosting a radio show for a number of years for RT.
7 years now. For Sputnik Radio.
Sputnik Radio.
Yeah, Sputnik Radio. The government, I think, or the agency maybe, would have been perfectly happy if I starved to death from lack of work or ended up at McDonald's. And I worked hard to rebuild my life. The only people who offered me a job were the Russians. And when they first offered me this job, I turned it down. And then 6 months later, they came back and said, we'd really like to offer you this radio show. And I said, the only way that I would do this is if I were free to say anything I wanted and to talk about any issue I wanted. And they said, done. And I said, yeah, but I would want to be able to criticize even Vladimir Putin. Done. And I said, would you put that in writing in the contract? And they said yes. And they did. And I'll give you an example. On the day of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, I opened the show by saying that I unequivocally condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and I call for Russian forces to depart Ukraine immediately. I criticize. I'll give you another example. Do you remember in York, England, I'm going to say 5 years ago, a Russian dissident and his daughter were poisoned with Novichok? We were doing a story on it, and my co-host said, well, it could have been the Ukrainians in a false flag operation. It could have been the Russian mafia. I said it was the KGB or whatever they're calling themselves. Now, they've been poisoning people since the 50s. This is what the Russians do. They poison people. Of course it was the Russian government. So they let me say anything I want. I've never, ever received any pushback, and I make a handsome living.